What was a normal part of your life growing up that other people were shocked by? Kneeling on rice as a punishment for just about anything. Mom would throw a few handfuls of rice in a corner and you had to kneel on it for 20 minutes to an hour. Hands behind your back. And don't you dare try to lean on that wall or you'd get smacked in the back of the head and into the wall and your time would start over. Afterwards you'd have to clean it up, including any blood from broken skin, and then often you'd have to help make dinner or do whatever chore as if nothing happened. My parents showed love, support, and financial stability. Came as a fucking shock to my wife. Whenever my friends would come over, I would tell them about the rules you had to follow when talking to my dad. This would include, agree with everything he says. Don't speak unless asked a question. Always try and answer. Don't say, I don't know. Don't cry when he has a go at you, etc., etc. Took a few friends meeting my dad, then refusing to come round again, being picked up early because they were upset, to realize that most kids don't live in constant fear of a parent, and don't have a set rules in order to keep said parent calm and happy. The total lack of love. My brother and sister have always had a good relationship with my parents, but for reasons I don't understand, my parents wished I didn't exist. I was an inconvenience at best. I once broke my ribs falling out of a tree. They made me wait 3 days until they had spare time to take me to hospital. Beatings were frequent. Beatings for any perceived mistake. Beatings for being bullied at school. The beatings I was told were to toughen me up. Beatings for crying while being beaten. I eventually figured out that the beatings, name-calling, and abuse all came from the same root cause. Using up my parents' time and effort when they could have been spending it with my siblings or each other. So I tried to become invisible. I learned to move around the house silently. Which floorboards squeaked. How to open and close doors without sound. How to control my breathing to be absolutely quiet. I set up a chair and books in my closet so I could be in there unseen for hours. It was only when I left home that I found out other children enjoyed spending time with their parents, that they talked to them, had fun with them, and were supported and cared for by them. Monsieur, I can't imagine how good that must feel. Even to have memories of cuddling on a sofa with a parent or going to the park must be amazing. I've never had a family dinner at home. We just all get our food at different times and eat in separate locations. I never once saw my parents fight or yell. I can only recall one time that they were even sort of huffy with each other. One time I made a new friend from middle school and invited him over. We just had a normal evening of pizza and video games and watching shitty early internet flash movies. My parents would check up on us, but just let us be and watch TV in the living room by themselves quietly. As the evening went on, he got kinda weird and withdrawn, and then took me aside to ask if me and my family were a bunch of fucking Bible thumpers, to which I incredulously replied no to. He basically explained that the lack of skin flicks lying around, loud arguments, strange people coming over, and holes punched in the walls was extremely off-putting to him. Monsieur, to him, that sort of constant instability and chaos was completely normal and something that regular, average people did. And my quiet, boring home life was a total outlier. It was kinda hard for us to be friends after that, and we drifted apart really fast. I hope he's doing alright. As an Asian kid, I grew up being disciplined physically. Got the belt, the hand, the slipper, wooden spoon, you name it. This had happened to me so much as a kid, I literally thought this was normal, and that all families did this. I remember being in 8th grade and having a conversation with my friends, and we were talking about our parents, and I nonchalantly was like, oh yeah, my mom hits me all the time. She always slaps me in the face. I'm used to it. Because I genuinely and truly thought this was normal. I didn't realize how fucked up it was until my teacher brought me into the hallway to ask if my Home life was okay and explained to me his duty to report thing. He asked if I wanted him to call. Obviously I said no, but I remember going forward this teacher used to walk on eggshells when it came to giving me bad comments or speaking with my parents during parent-teacher interviews because he didn't want me to get in trouble. My alcoholic father addressing me as a parasite from the age of 10. I grew up in this rickety old farmhouse in the middle of Minnesota. It was really cold a lot of the year, and our upstairs didn't have insulation, so we didn't have any heat upstairs. We'd sleep with an electric blanket and loads of other blankets heaped on top. When I woke up in the mornings, there would sometimes be frost on my walls because it was so cold and the windows didn't keep the cold out very well. It would also sometimes get to -50 degrees Fahrenheit and then school would automatically be canceled because kids couldn't wait outside at the bus stop. And sometimes Mom would take us outside to blow bubbles on really cold days. The bubbles would freeze in mid-air and fall to the ground and shatter. My friend's boyfriend were all shocked by this stuff. Doesn't get anywhere near as cold where we live now. My stepmother beating the absolute shit out of me for very little reason, or sometimes no reason at all, on a pretty regular basis. Death and illness. My dad died from multiple organ failure. Liver and kidneys gave in due to alcohol. This was a couple of years ago. My grandma was also sick around the same time with a cancerous brain tumor. She died last year, at the same time as my dad and grandma. My granddad was having heart issues and his dementia was getting worse. He then died earlier this year. Alcoholic father who died when I was just 12. Been working ever since. I never took a vacation or seasonal trip with family as a kid. We just never had the money for it. When I tell people this, they're appalled that I've never been to Disneyland, beautiful islands or foreign countries in my youthful summers. Guess a lot of people I know can't fathom the idea that some families are poor. And I've moved around a lot. Went to like 4 or 5 elementary schools and 3 middle schools. Just trying to find the next cheapest place to live. When I was a kid I lived on a traveler site. That is a caravan park for gypsy and or Irish travelers. But I didn't tell anyone because I wanted to be normal. The teachers put me into the special class automatically with all the slow or deaf kids. I think people didn't expect me to be intelligent or enjoy reading and drawing. I'm a professional now and people are shocked I came from that background. Someone said I looked like a pikey the other day, lol. Grew up with 7 siblings. 5 brothers and 2 girls. Between the brothers we had just 4 pairs of shoes, which meant that at least 2 of us had to stay at home. Went to school barefoot for almost a week before they called child services. I grew up ultra-Orthodox Jewish, so a lot of stuff. No TV, no internet, no video games, speaking Yiddish at home, laying motionless on the Sabbath, pretty much forbidden to do anything, etc. I wasn't allowed outside of my bedroom, monsieur, no radio, TV, friends or phone. I had an evil stepmother who hated me since I was 5. They finally kicked me out when I was 15. I still don't have good social skills and am afraid to upset people. Having progressive grandparents. Seriously. Most people make their grandparents seem like racist pieces of shit. My grandparents are incredibly loving. Living at a farm of 90 horses and casually bringing it up. I didn't know I was in a very religious family until I found out how abnormal it was in college. Like my family and I never missed Sunday Mass. We used to celebrate every first Friday of the month by dressing up nicely to go to a Latin Mass, which was like the original language said in the first Catholic Masses. We prayed the rosary a lot, and during the Lenten season we would go around churches to offer more rosaries and prayers. Plus our family has like 4 priests and 5 nuns. Now that I'm older though, A lot of the stuff we used to do happens less often, although I still haven't missed Sunday Mass. I've never had my own room. I grew up in one-roomed apartment with mom, dad, elder brother, a dog and a cat. We never had much space there, but a lot of furniture that was really necessary. People didn't understand why I never invite friends to my home. All that jealousy when somebody complains about parents entering their room without knocking. The amount of trips to the liquor store. When I was young, nearly every time I got in the car with my mom or dad, the story was the same. We're going to stop at the liquor store then home. Sometimes when I'd switch parents, they were divorced, I'd stop at the liquor store twice, once each way. One day I was at a sleepover at a friend's house whose parents weren't extreme alcoholics. We ran errands on 3 or 4 separate times and didn't stop at the liquor store. 8-year-old me was so confused. On the final trip I poked my head up between the front seats, and trying to be helpful and remind them said, "Aren't we going to stop at the liquor store?" Quote, and the parents looked at me like I had 2 heads. No. Quote, I was so confused I just got out of the van and went inside. Edit. Neat. Silver. Thanks. My first ever Reddit award. We didn't have the right to have cell phones until we graduate and have our bachelor. I low-key grew up in a cult. It wasn't ridiculously intense. No terrible brainwashing or abuse, but the seclusion made for a bizarre childhood. I went to an elementary school in the basement of our church. At the largest, there were 15 students. The smallest I remember it being was 5. We were there for the week in school, then back again on the Sabbath, Saturday, for service. I didn't have any friends outside of the church, and inside the church it was only my classmates that were even close. It made for a real shit 8th grade when my school shut down and I was moved to public school. For the last year of middle school, the church had a lot of weird rules about things. They believed that the Sabbath started late on Friday and went until midnight Saturday, and therefore we couldn't go to school or work on Friday. I thought Friday was part of the weekend until I was 9. They followed a flexitarian diet. Fish and poultry as the only animals we could eat. Anything with a cloven hoof or crawled along the ocean floor was dirty and forbidden. To this day I haven't eaten any red meat. I never really developed a taste for it and it's fun to pull out. Never ever have I ever eaten bacon at parties. No dancing. No singing. No fun. I didn't have any knowledge of pop culture or even music that wasn't choir or piano. You wouldn't really know it to meet me now. I'm fairly well-adjusted, decently functional human considering the isolated mess I started as, which is nice.